on youtube.com/restlessambitionvlogs. So the purpose of this stream is basically just to complain, update. Moderation doesn't make me feel safe. Moderation doesn't help everyone feel safe. It helps oligarchs feel safe. Censorship of free communications doesn't make everybody feel safe. What do you mean, YouTube? Moderation helps everyone feel safe. It's this 1984 doublespeak. Okay? Moderation. So, approving and disproving citizens' attempts to communicate with one another. That's what you mean by moderation. And they take this concept of, oh, it's rude to say mean words. And nobody should really have to suffer something which is rude, right? You know, oh, well, if we don't have moderation, somebody might come in and say, hey, you're dumb, or you're stupid, or I don't like your video, or you're fat, or this is boring. Yeah. So they delete things like that. Okay? They artificially select winners and losers in their ecosystem and don't allow for legitimate discovery of small content creators. Okay? I have all of the proof in the world. If you want to discuss it, we can discuss it. But if you want to sit back and stalk me and pretend like you're not paying attention to me, what do you expect a rational human response to be to the treatment which the society hands out to people? I can, there's a lot of subtext here which is not explicitly on the table on this channel. There's only 2 or 3 videos. You got me in the attic about a year ago, and you got video of a lightning storm, and then 1 live stream, which remains up on the channel. So, there's a lot of subtext here to the things which I'm saying, which might be escaping. But what I'm trying to say here is, I've been trying to communicate outwardly on the internet for many years now, actually, and across various live streaming services, multiple YouTube accounts. We're just not getting any traction. Whenever I've applied for jobs, we've kind of gotten ghosted. The hiring market, the employment market is not very good right now, and hasn't been. So I'm kind of at the end of my wits. I'm pretty much planning on getting work visas outside of the United States and potentially shopping around for another citizenship. I might as well just expatriate because my life here has been horrible. I know that if I go to other areas of the world and I want to speak on the internet, that I have less of a chance of being censored than I do here in the United States. We do not have freedom of speech. This concept that a private corporation can censor somebody's speech as much as they want, and that's their right, and you don't have any resolution because it's a private platform, go build your own YouTube. Go build your own trillion-dollar conglomerate. And then you'll be able to say whatever you want. You realize how stupid that is, right? Like, if you can't do it here, you can't do it anywhere. Right? Freedom of speech is supposed to be an absolute in this country, but it's not. We don't even have, it's not even protected. Okay? We have the opposite of freedom of speech in this country. We have total surveillance and censorship. And for that reason, I can't help but say I hate the United States. I hate Americans. I hate America. My life here has not been good. And there are so many problems across the world. I mean, the United States has dropped more bombs on other countries than every other country has dropped on another country combined. The United States is the premier terrorist of the world and has been for over a century, right? It's not even up for debate. The government is weaponized against the citizenry. A handful of, most people in the United States are conditioned into complacency, and they're too busy on the treadmill of life. They start working at a young age and they never stop. Me, I'm somebody who's had this kind of like time where I'm just kind of like sat around reflecting. I've learned a whole hell of a lot. I've gained a huge amount of awareness. Most people have not had the free time that I've had to go delve the depths of the internet and find out all these little conversational topics. The majority of Americans simply don't have the time, and then most of them don't really have the capacity to engage with this material either, to be blunt with you. I just went out about town, and frankly, the people, they're terrible. They're horrible. I was at one light, and there was a black lady wearing a face mask that was around her chin in the car next to me with her window rolled down. And she was smoking a cigarette, and she was missing most of her teeth. She's overweight. So, overweight black woman in a not so good car smoking a cigarette with a blue face mask around her chin. So I did, for the fuck of it, I just rolled down my window and I'm like, don't you know that smoking kills? And she said, everything kills. To which I responded, no, everything dies. Not everything kills. Everything dies, but not everything kills. And then she said, you right. And then she smiled at me. And I rolled my window back up. Yeah. But that's the kind of people around this fucking city. It's just like, we may as well be living in South Africa, man. My parents are lazy. They're just so fucking lazy. And they had such a good income for so long, with a proper mind for investment. There's no reason they shouldn't be, like, fantastically wealthy. Okay? If you've been earning over $100,000 for 30, over 30 years, like 35, 40 years, I'm sorry, but you just really don't. This is very low achievement for somebody who's been in that tax bracket, right? Okay? A shitty house in a suburb is just very low achieving. It's profoundly disappointing as the son of my dad to see that he just kind of like didn't really fucking do anything with himself. He fell into the 9 to 5ism, come home on the weekend and have an alcoholic beverage and eat a meal and watch a movie or something and just go to sleep. It's a boring life. And all around us, they built these low-income housing apartments, so there's like all sorts of apartments around us. So this relatively, it's a firmly middle-class neighborhood is how I would describe this, right? So it's like so a lot of like, middle-class families around here. It's typically what it's been cast as, but over the last like decade, they built 5 apartment complexes around, so it's like what's the vicinity of the neighborhood is now enclosed by low-income housing complexes. And like as I was driving back, so after I saw that, I had that brief interaction with that black lady, I saw a black guy is probably like 19, 18. He looked like he could be like 17 to 21. And he's walking down this road, which really nobody has any business walking down. It's not a walkable road. Okay? And he's probably going to buy alcohol or tobacco or this hemp bullshit that they sell, right? And he's definitely living in one of these low-income apartment complexes that they just built. And he's endangering his life by walking on that road, which is really not intended to be walkable. And he's lowering the quality of the environment, just bluntly speaking, And, I mean, you just don't, if you're paying for a middle-class neighborhood, and that's what you bought, and then it kind of slowly becomes this majority low income black neighborhood. Because so they have like five or six apartment complexes they built on the side of this neighborhood, which house as many people as the entire neighborhood combined. Right? So like each apartment complex, you get like 80 units stacked on top of each other. Okay, the entire neighborhood is maybe like 100 and something houses, right? So it's like every one of these apartment complexes is basically a whole nother fucking neighborhood worth of people. So they're just like outnumbered us like 5-1 over the course of a decade with low income black people. And I don't mean to be terribly racist about the whole thing. And, it's not like the neighborhood is completely gone yet. But, my parents, going to pass away eventually. And then I'm going to, me and my half brother, half sister are going to be splitting this place, or they're going, my mom will sell it after my dad passes, or maybe he'll live longer and then they'll sell it eventually, or they'll hold on to it. So one way or another, I am inextricably like connected to the next 10 to 15 to 20 years of how this neighborhood may or may not go. And, that whole, there goes the neighborhood kind of effect. I'm sorry, but that's what I'm seeing. I think that this is still going to be a relatively like good property, but if you're looking for your uh, middle class, secluded, a lot of these people are deluded, I think, about the quality of their lives and the quality of American accommodations and society in general. I don't know. That's enough about that. So when you go out in society, nothing about America encourages one, right? There's not like a plurality of interesting individuals to interact with. It's a desert of the real. So I've been held in objectively torturous conditions. One should not be living their lives in isolation through force. And I'm living a life of forced isolation. By all means, I've done everything which an individual should be expected to do to participate in the society properly. I got a college degree. I worked a couple of jobs. And after a couple of terrible jobs, I couldn't find anything good. And now I'm just sitting around, being stalked by the government day in and day out. They're weaponizing information against me. Instead of having a career as a variety gaming streamer that gets, like it's like 5 or 6 comments every 3 months. You know what I mean? I don't. You know what I mean? I'm not asking for the world. Okay, I'm asking for organic opportunity to grow. I'm not saying that I need to be a billionaire streamer, but just point blank, I was never given a legitimate opportunity to compete because they feared my competition. I'm too politically accurate, and I don't really have a group with me to kind of force myself through, so why would they let me? Think about it. Yeah, the United States is nothing more than a terrorist organization, unfortunately. I wish that I could say that I did not feel this way, right? I really, at one point, whenever I was younger, I had a lot of goodwill and I wanted to improve the circumstances of living for people generally. And even still, that's ultimately how I really feel per se. But at this point, I don't believe that that's possible because you've demonstrated to me that we're governed by terrorists. And I would probably sooner rather class myself as a Swiss citizen. I'd rather be Dutch or Swedish or Japanese, or hell, I'd take Chinese or even North Korean. In North Korea, they have a governing philosophy called Juche. Juche. It's beautiful. And one of the core tenets, I believe it's the first principle of Juche, is that man is a social animal and that social interaction is vital for the well being of an individual. So it's actually a human right in North Korea to have social interaction. Whereas in the United States, you could try streaming yourself for years, and at the end of it, you're sitting alone in your parents' house, broke, accused of crimes you didn't commit, scrambling for the exit from the country to escape from utter tyranny. I've had a computer in my household since the day I was born. I was brought home to a hospital in 94 that already had an internet connected computer. So for me, I've grown up underneath a system which is as bad as Nazi Germany for the Jews. I've been predated by the government. The government has attacked me my entire life. I've been treated as a subject, not as a citizen. It's like, would you then, is this like an accusation against me? Is saying that, listen, I my language is very specific. Okay, I said earlier, I don't want to live around low income black people who exhibit low income black people behaviors. I don't mind intelligent, articulate, respectable black people. Point blank. I would say that one of the best friends I've ever had, probably the person that I would most like to hang out with, okay, would be a black friend of mine. I'm not a white supremacist. If anything, I hate the majority of white people. I probably hate white people more than I hate even others. It's like they're by and large too stupid, right? They're just like too stupid. And I hate all these kind of like American redneck, like drive a truck, join a militia. That's the kind of thing that these sort of, like drink beer or football. I don't care about any of that shit. I want to go play soccer and play card games and play video games and do math and all these various different kind of things. I want to garden and yeah. So I'm not with this redneck agenda. I don't like the American population, including the white people. I hate the white people. So like somebody like Nick Fuentes or this guy, hate them both. Don't don't you dare slander me. But I'm not going to pretend like I want to live. It's like I don't want I did not want to live my life, okay, in this neighborhood and watch them cut down all the trees, build new houses, a new generation of people come in. A lot of them the same age as me. They already have families because they haven't been hit as badly as I've been hit by this stuff. I took the route of trying to invest in crypto, and all that got me was the government right up my ass. They stole my coins, stalked me, and refused to acknowledge me. Blocked me from being able to communicate with the outside world. The United States government is nothing more than a terrorist organization. And so I'm here. I'm speaking truth to power. I don't give a fuck. This is my life. I deserve to be earning an income, working at a job which I've applied to. I should be interviewed. I should not be put on the short list. I should not be getting automated rejection emails, especially from Fortune 500 companies. It's like, I'm not asking for a raise. I'm asking for a complete change to the fundamental fabric of what humanity is. And as far as I'm concerned right now, I'm sorry, but any injury that the United States sustained, you deserve. Don't take this as an advocation. I sincerely don't understand how the United States has not suffered military action against itself in the way that it has harmed others. I don't understand it. In physics, okay, a force has an equal and opposite force. I suppose you could point to 9/11, but nebulously we might interpret that as an inside job. I don't trust Larry Silverstein or the State of Israel. And I would consider Judaism to be a supremacist ideology because I've read the passages. I mean, the term goyim implies that it is the stated, if you've read the Bible, okay, it is the stated intention of Israel to enslave all of humanity. It's not even controversial as a statement in an academic setting. Your layman will argue with you all day. If you talk to somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, they might argue with you and tell you all this and that. Okay. But if we're cutting out all of this pseudo-intellectualist, fake academic, fake intellectualism, Judaism is a supremacist ideology. And they're using an Israeli surveillance company to hack phones globally.
Why is Israeli?
And they've deleted my comment, by the way, as you can see. It's right here. Because the United States government is simply a terrorist organization and nothing else, born into a Gestapo death camp where everybody is stalked by a predatory government. I anticipate more bloodshed in this century than any previous. Because if you would treat me like this, if you would do all these things which you've done to everybody around the world, around the country, they're criminalizing homelessness and poverty. We see people getting shot by cops every day. That one cop in Florida broke that black man's window and punched him in the face because he didn't have on his headlights. That was a week ago. What was that one case where it was like six black police officers beat a black man to death? Couple months ago, they let him off. I've seen videos. There was one video I saw. A man got choked to death they pulled him off of a motorcycle and choked him to death on his helmet. These things happen all the time. The United States is objectively a terrible place. We have more brutality and more killing by police, by the government. We have more censorship. We have less economic freedom, less speech freedom than even that of North Korea. In North Korea, I would be free to say that I hate the United States and not be censored. I genuinely believe that if I went to North Korea, I would have a better life. I believe that Kim Jong-un would, If he were to be familiarized with myself and my beliefs and my sayings and things like this, we have more in common. We're more compatible politically than me and that of the GOP or the Democrats. I like the Chinese social harmony gambit. I know it's not perfect. I'm not North Korean, I'm not Chinese, and I never will be. But I know that they wouldn't go out of their way to censor me for speaking the truth. But I know that America will. And I can't help but say also, it's like, I, I mean, Nassim Agdam, obviously, it's a meme, okay? Uh, but it's a learning event. It's like, what do you think that the average citizen is going to feel when they go to the internet to try to publish themselves and they're censored and they don't see results? I would argue it's an economic imperative of the United States to ensure that every citizen has sufficient earnings. Anytime you see a social security number not pinging earnings, I mean, it's a matter of philosophy. I wish that I had somebody here to discuss this sort of stuff with. Utopianist concepts and how to improve things. I wish that I had any authority to make those kind of changes, but instead we don't. So it's like my solution is get a work visa outside of the United States as soon as I'm legally permitted to. Examine options for expatriation, and in 2032 maybe I'll run for president. Launch a campaign, even if it's just symbolic. Things need to be said. And it should be illegal for you to hold me in this condition. It's like, by what right? What do you think you're actually achieving? Yeah. And that's how bad it is like they're literally weaponized against the American people. I would presume, based off of many little things which I've observed, that I'm being monitored. Behind screen cameras are a thing. Um, it's twisted. One shouldn't be reading between the lines on YouTube thumbnails to try to be able to uncover the truth of how they're being stalked. One way or another, information assembled from me is fed into this feed, which I'm consuming, right, to serve me appropriate recommendations, or so they would claim, right? So, oh, he watches this type of video, that type of video. So if you're making that kind of a manipulation, it's only a half step to then go to, oh, we recommended this video in reference to this aspect of your life. So I got a recommendation earlier for take your shirt off, which would mean, as my interpretation, I have been walking around without my shirt on, sunbathing. And this was around the time where I might go do such an activity. It's about around the time where I had been going to do that. And I saw a recommendation which said that. It was a song with that title. So one might look at that and say, hey, you're reading too far into it. That sounds kind of like you're connecting a dot which isn't there. But then also, how about one time I was brushing my teeth? Okay. And afterwards, I sat with water in my mouth, just kind of like swishing the water, keeping the water in my mouth, letting it sort of like work its way around my tongue and sort of like clean off my tongue. So I sat there with water in my mouth, which is kind of strange, for maybe like 10-15 minutes. So my cheeks are a bit inflated, right? So they're kind of like puffed out, filled with water. And I get a recommendation in my video feed of somebody with their cheeks puffed out. You know, I'm sitting in my room alone. Ostensibly, there should be no camera on me. And you might again say, hey, well, that's just a coincidence. You know, things like that happen. I've been having things like that happen for years. Okay? And at some point, it ceases to just be coincidence, man. And I'm not high. I'm not imagining it. You know, reference to some aspect of what you say. Have a conversation with somebody, and then you get a recommendation, advertisement recommendation. You know, this sort of stuff should not be taken sitting down idly, right? And I'm at least here doing what I can right now, and I will in the future have a greater capacity. I do not deserve to be held in this internment camp. Like, I'm a citizen ostensibly living in a prison camp as a free citizen. Without having been convicted of a crime, and especially without having committed a crime. So we're at a point now where the demand for attention cannot be satisfied by the current supply of attention. So as a culture, we have more people who are seeking to gain attention on social media than there are people who are watching people on social media. So there are more people starting YouTube channels than there are people to watch every YouTube channel which is being created. So the view counts are largely fake. And the powers that be don't want to discuss this stuff. They want it to just fall by the wayside. They want every single person like myself who doesn't have a large audience, doesn't have a bunch of connections, doesn't have a bunch of money, doesn't even have like a seed group. You know, some people have a couple friends that watch their stuff, and, you know, it's their seed group. They do that with a low viewership. Maybe they get a small viewership over time. But people who are truly isolated like myself, the government has demonstrated that they are predatory. I don't care about mortgage rates because I will never get a mortgage. So I went from being a man who had just separated with a banking job, which was not good because I was on a team of H-1B1 visa contract Indian workers, and they didn't work well at all. So it's like a major corporation that had a horrible workflow, terrible people. Okay, the only thing good was the pay. And the pay wasn't even good. Okay? So would you rather have $0 or $2. It's like, would you rather buy a soda pop and a bag of chips or starve on the street? So separate from this terrible job and have saved up. I saved up all my income. Uh, we got harassed by my demented dad. He's got dementia. He's a stupid person. He's been taking pills all his life. He's got issues. Even now, he's getting a heart ablation on August 31st, and he's just smoked a cigar today, right? So he's like smoking cigar. He smoked a cigar. He drinks Diet Mountain Dew. He drinks coffee. He uses nicotine. He takes various like pills, which he's convinced is going to like help him. So I'm profoundly disappointed by the quality of the parenting which I have received. And the United States has not even made it possible for me to like really get away from these people, right? Um so we went from what could have been a nice setup. I could have gotten another job. I had to deal with this demented, aggressive boomer who's really, really fucking stupid. Went around bleeding money, staying in hotels because of said boomer. Didn't get any response to my employment applications. Didn't get any response to my attempts to outward communication on social medias. Got charged with a crime. Got got more serious about learning foreign languages so that I can expatriate. It's just at this point, I don't know what I can do. It's been like so that started that whole chain of events. Okay, we're talking 2023. Okay, it's near. We're nearing the end of 2025. This is too fucking long to spend out of work being stalked by the government, trying to put in applications, trying to stream, trying to communicate outwardly. I'm in complete isolation. I'm trying to live my life. And if I had money, I'd be I'd be gardening on my own property, kicking soccer all day, playing games, programming, and I wouldn't have a care in the world. I'd just be happy to be able to afford to live like that and live like that. And maybe I'd be looking at starting a family. We'd be down the line doing our thing. That's not happening. And the only reason is because the United States is a terrorist organization. The choices which they have made. It's absurd, bro. The United States is a scam. Donald Trump is one of the most transparently corrupt people to have ever been in political office, right? So, like, the emperor wears no clothes. That one story, uh, it doesn't even come close, right? It's like it's supposed to be a metaphor for the people at large realizing that their ruler is incompetent, right? Uh, this is one of the dumbest people who have ever lived. Like, no joke. The idea that he's failed upward like this is bizarre. If you're willing to resort to killing your opposition, as he appears to be, from my vantage, maybe that's how. Originally, I would have counted myself more. I don't appreciate what's happening to the country and the species and the planet. So I would have maybe have deceived myself previously that I'm more in the right wing camp, and I think the reaction to Trump is not that bad, and the January Sixers were not that bad. But now that I've learned about Enrico Terrio, I even kind of said like Enrico Terrio, he didn't really do anything that bad. And I watched the part about his Cuban mom, and they're in Florida. They have that one segment, get her. But they allegedly, literally refer, if it's true that they were referring to themselves as like the Decemberists and other stuff like this. I didn't read every communication, but I'm more open now to the concept that it was actually like January 6th really was like an insurrection plot. To me, that just seems ridiculous, and it still is, right? Like it would have never have worked. These people are morons. They're cosplaying. They're larping, right? But I'm more sympathetic. I still think the majority of those people were probably not involved. But like Enrico Terrio and the others, I like if it's true that they were like using code names without communications can be faked. Um, so I don't really know the in and out of it. All I know is I don't really trust this administration. Clearly, he's guilty of everything and anything as it pertains to the Trump files, to the Epstein files, and the Ivanka allegation that he like. I read her. So she's buried. His ex-wife is buried on his New Jersey golf course for a tax break, and this is how I heard it reported. She fell down a flight of stairs in 2022 and died. And people said that she always used the elevator and didn't really use the stairs. And there was a statement released by her allegedly. I don't know if it was released just a couple days ago or what the situation was, but it accused Donald Ivanka would seemingly, based off the report that I had heard, accuse Donald Trump of raping her in a very like aggressive manner while they were married. So it's like it just kind of like statements of character. I've heard a lot of stuff about this particular issue, and it's funny because rushing to Ghislaine Maxwell to try to like intercept the death of Epstein's lawyer. I think that was 2 days ago. Epstein's former lawyer died. That's suspicious. Hulk Hogan had a heart attack. Maybe it's because he realized that he was supporting Donald Trump when Donald Trump is clearly a guilty pedophile. Um, Maybe he got killed because he was implicated in the Epstein file and he was like about to say something. I wouldn't put it past him. Yeah, maybe it's because he's a former wrestler that put too much pressure on his heart. Something about your dad having heart issues that makes you consider your own heart, right? Hearts are very fragile. It's a small muscle the size of your fist that if it ever fails to beat, to circulate blood around your body once in your entire lifetime, you're done. Immediately, you're dead. I am not living my best life. And I'm not even living a good life. I'm living an objectively terrible life. My upbringing and, know, young adult life in the United States has been terrible, objectively horrible. So from now, I've had my opening speech here. I'm just here to hang out for a little bit, I guess. I don't know really what I'm going to get up to. We're going to look around my video feed, but I pretty much communicated the message. At this point, maybe I should just end the stream and go about my night. I will say this here, since I'm seeing Wood VR tech. Uh, Microsoft, how stupid are you? Like, you are one of the worst brands on the planet. Ending support for Windows mixed reality devices in Windows with 22H2 update to Windows 11, or I think that's also on Windows 10. They remove it on Windows 10 as well. So basically, they sold these headsets, these VR headsets, for about 5 or 6 years. I think they first started coming out around like 2015, 16. And all of a sudden, Microsoft has completely removed the necessary code from Windows devices to utilize those headsets. And, my headset, I think I got it on sale. I think it was like maybe like $299. It's fucking expensive. I think it's normally like $500. I got like a really good headset. It's supposed to be like one of the first. It's the last headset that Samsung made. So it's like their most advanced Windows mixed reality headset that they ever released. They never released another. And it's a pretty good VR headset. Unfortunately, Microsoft is a terrible company. I mean, there's just absolutely no explanation. They could have made it an optional download. They could have removed it from core feature list, right? And then left it up to download on Microsoft's website. They didn't do that. They removed the capacity to use your mixed reality device entirely. So now people are probably going through third-party solutions to make their VR headsets work. And that just is tantamount to the failure of American civilization. They can't do anything right. I'm not trying to be private. Threats to privacy. Okay.
Hey everybody, Nick.
Threats to privacy are bad. But what's even worse than threats to privacy are threats to freedom of speech. Threats to being public. I want to be public. I want to be seen, and I want to talk to people. I am being held in isolation, and I am being tortured.